Hey guys, and welcome to episode 3 of our second season. We are so pumped that you're here. All right, I've got a question for you. Have you ever felt gypped by your genetics? Like, maybe you'd be less depressed or anxious if these depression and anxiety genes didn't run in the family. Maybe you'd be thinner or just generally healthier if you'd gotten a better set of DNA. Today, we're going to address what to do if you feel like you got the short end of the genetic stick. But first, I want to share a story. The story of my quest into the wilds of Tartary in search of our next lesson in mental health. Okay, I know I sound a little different today, guys. I'm recording the first segment of this episode on location. Right now, I'm traveling on foot through a pretty dense forest. I'm trying to track down the vegetable lamb of Tartary. It's a zoophyte, and it actually has a lot to do with what we're talking about in today's episode. Wait, there it is. Oh my gosh, she is beautiful. Wow. Listeners, I really wish you could see what we're looking at right now. I'll do my best to describe it. It's really incredible. It looks amazingly like a domestic lamb, but its tail is still long, like not trimmed. It's just here in the forest grazing. It's attached to its mother plant with this long stem. Okay, so what I'm seeing is this lamb is growing from a very flexible stem. The base of the stem is right in the ground, surrounded by a bunch of broad, soft leaves. The other end is attached to the lamb's belly, like an umbilical cord. It looks like it can lean forward and graze on the surrounding plants, but according to the literature on this thing, its body is actually made of the same flesh and bones that you would expect with the domestic sheep. All the text on vegetable lambs say that once the animal has grazed all the flora it can reach, both it and its mother plant will die. These animals were once harvested at this point, and then they'd be eaten, and their wool would be turned into clothing. Anyway, I'm gonna be quiet. I just want to watch it for a while. Okay, I'm back in the studio now, and I'm ready to tell you what the vegetable lamb of Tartary has to do with today's episode and your mental health. So, in case you couldn't tell, the vegetable lamb of Tartary is not real at all. But amazingly, many people once believed that it was. In the 11th century, around the same time period as the Crusades, naturalists actually believed there were these creatures that were intermediaries between the plant and animal world. Reports of these plant-animal hybrids, called zoophytes, can be found all the way until the 1700s, and included creatures like the vegetable lamb of Tartary, wolves that also grew from stems, and some misunderstood animals like sea anemones. It's not hard to find historical examples of myths that were widely accepted as facts. It's been going on since the dawn of man, and it probably won't stop until the end of man. A lot of these myths are harmless, but a lot of them aren't. And when it comes to taking care of your own mind, mental health myths can do a lot more damage than you might think. That's why today's episode is designed to help you combat one of mental health's most interesting and most important myths. This is something we're hoping to do a little more often, pointing out some mental health myths that may be skewing your chance at a balanced brain. Because when it comes to your brain, we don't want you to be chasing the imaginary. Get ready to blow the dust off what you think you know, and let's begin. We believe there's no better way to protect our world from chaos than by healing our minds. But for that, we need to reach a lot of people. If you want a quick, free way to support us, please leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, or Audible. This will help get our name in front of more people and help all of us take back the world, one brain at a time. The genetic myth. How much can your DNA determine your fate? Brown eyes or blue, wavy hair or stock straight. Thanks to your high school science class, you already know that your features are a product of your genetic code, those ribbons of DNA that wind around every part of who you are. You've also been taught that mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and ADHD can be genetic. That's why the doc asks for your family history when you first visit. And they are genetic, but there's a plot twist. Let's talk about epigenetics. Until recently, modern science has believed that genetic expression, the way your genes change how you're built, is set in stone. That means if you have the depression gene, the anxiety gene, even the cancer gene, well, nothing would stop you from getting those things. I remember sitting among rows of students in my college biology class, listening with great interest as my professor told us that for about $1,000, any one of us could get a DNA test that would describe which hereditary diseases we were going to get. Raise your hands if you want to know what diseases you're going to acquire, the professor said. About 3/4 of the class raised their hands. Now, he continued, how many of you would rather enjoy the present and not know what's coming? My professor wasn't the only guy sharing this genetic perspective. At the time, it wasn't uncommon to believe that genetics could determine nearly everything about you, from your IQ to whether or not you would cheat on your spouse. So, about 3 years of college and one sabbatical later, I was thrilled when another professor introduced me to something magical: epigenetics. Epigenetics research suggests that our environment, for example, what we eat, where we live, how we exercise, and the kind of people we surround ourselves with, could change how our genes express themselves. In other words, epigenetics wouldn't remove a cancer gene, but it could possibly stop that gene from turning on. This opened my eyes to something that seemed downright miraculous: that our destiny is not our DNA. Your destiny is not your DNA. You may not be able to change your eye color without using contacts, but it's not too late to change other factors that are affecting your mental health. Hereditary mental illnesses may have belonged to your parents, but they don't have to belong to you. So the idea that you're stuck with what you got thanks to your genes? Just another mental health myth. Epigenetics is a double-edged sword. There are positive genetic expressions you can switch on, so to speak, but there are also negative genes you can trigger. So the big question is, how do we use epigenetics to our advantage? To answer this question, we'll ask someone smarter than I am, a leader in the field of epigenetics research by the name of Dr. Yael Joffe. Just a little background on this interview: Dr. Joffe and I literally had to schedule this thing 4 times. The first time there was a tech error and our fantastic, amazing, wonderful interview did not record. I was absolutely mortified. Dr. Joffe needed to push our second interview back, and when the time finally came to record again, my internet went out. Like, a technician needed to come fix the underground line. During all this, Dr. Joffe was very, very patient, so we're doubly happy to hear what she has to say. Okay, well, you look lovely. It's really good to be with you again.
We had a warm-up session. Now we got the real thing.
That's right. That's right. I got to refine my questions a little bit. So, the last time we spoke, I asked you a question about epigenetics, and you explained to us that before we get into all of that, we need to know the difference between genetics and epigenetics and understand some fundamentals. Could you explain some of that to us again?
Okay, we're going to absolutely. This is genetics 101, and it's such an important conversation. All right. So, in order to understand the world of genetics, the whole world of genetics, we need to define separately the concept of genetics versus the concepts of epigenetics. There is a lot of confusion happening out there in the marketplace. So, let's start with genetics. So, we as human beings have this DNA sequence code, right? We have cells, and inside our cells, we have nucleus, and inside the nucleus are 23 pairs of chromosomes. And when you unwind these chromosomes and lay them out flat, All it actually looks like is a code, and this code is made of C, T, and A, G letters. So just like English has got a language of 26 letters, genetics has got a language of 4 letters, C, T, A, G. And the amazing thing is everything about who we are and how we exist and respond to the world around us is written in this sequence code in these letters. But 99.9% of the time, the letters, the code, the sequence is identical for all of us. But at 0.1%, we will find different spelling in our sequence code. And it's these differences between our code that make us who we are, that make us different, whether it's in how we respond to stress or to toxins, how tall we are, how the color of our eyes would be a simple one. It could be how we manage glucose or hormones. So everything about these spelling changes changes the way we respond, diet, lifestyle, exercise, toxins, etc. I think you got the point. So these spelling changes, this DNA sequence code does not change in your lifetime. So whether you do a genetic test when you're born or you do it when you're 60, you're going to get the same sequence code. Okay, now here's the other 50% of this world of genetics. Epigenetics is not about the sequence code and why ours is different. It's about how genes express. Now, the word express, I always have many words I use for it. So how genes behave, how genes express, but essentially what it is how genes switch on and switch off. So when an enzyme or a hormone or brain message or anything like that needs to be made, we need to switch on the gene. The gene then goes and makes the protein, which is that enzyme or hormone, and gets it to work. So every single second of every single day of our entire lifetime, there is this continuous switching on and switching off of genes that really determines how our body works. So if you imagine when our body is encountering toxins in the environment, maybe we're in a city with lots of pollution and our body's like overwhelmed, it's going to go and switch on detox genes. And when you switch on detox genes, you make detox enzymes. So when you have detox enzymes, you can help clear the toxins from the pollution out your body. So epigenetics is how we switch on and switch off genes. Now, the really cool thing about epigenetics is the reason that genes are switched on and switched off depends on the choices we make and the environments that we're in. So I gave a perfect example where you're in a very toxic environment, lots of pollutants, it will switch on detox genes. You can, let's think of a very positive one. You eat cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and it also switches on detox genes, right? Because it wants to clear toxins. We think of inflammation. You take omega-3 fatty acids, the wonderful fish oils, and it's going to switch off inflammatory genes. So genetics is always two conversations. Know who you are from your genetic sequence code and how you respond to the world, and then make really good choices to be able to optimize the way your genes switch on and switch off.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Now, refresh me. Did you say that 99.9% of our genome is shared in common? So it comes down to 0.1% roughly.
Yeah, and it doesn't 0.1%, and it doesn't sound a lot, but actually it is a lot. So these spelling letters, these A's, T's, and C's and G's, we have about 3 to 4 billion of them in our DNA. So just in one cell, in that 23 pairs of chromosomes, there are 3 to 4 billion of these letters. So if we're different at 0.1%, we're still different at 3 to 4 million places. Doesn't sound like a lot, but suddenly it's like, oh, wow, that is quite different. Of course, not all of those spelling changes matter. Some of them are called silent gene variants, that they don't actually change the body in any way or any way that we know of. But there are spelling changes that we do know what they do and we do know how they affect us. And those are the ones that we are interested in. So it's going to be in the hundreds and it's not going to be in the millions.
I see. Okay. And you also said that the decisions you make from moment to moment can change the expression of the genetic code that you have. So I mean, usually when healthcare providers are talking about making life changes, they're talking about a very long-term plan to see slow changes. But on the genetic level, some of these changes are happening literally minute by minute, as opposed to month by month.
Absolutely. So this is what's so exciting because people, this idea that, oh, we have to eat a healthy diet. And if we eat a healthy diet for a couple of years, that'll help us. But actually, what we know from epigenetics, from gene expression, is that every single decision, every minute of the day is going to switch on and switch off genes. And the really great thing about that is the power we have to change our health.
Right.
Happens in every moment, right?
Yeah.
In every moment. And so if this moment is not working out so well, and maybe you had like, I don't know, a triple espresso for breakfast and you're feeling really buzzed, you don't have to wait months to make the next big decision to be able to help your genes optimize the way that they're affecting your health. So the great thing is every choice we make, sometimes the choices are maybe not going to be so great, but fantastic. The next choice you make can really, really change your health.
That is very empowering. So if you make a poor decision, the very next minute, you can find some redemption. And when you're making choices, you can remember that it's not going to follow you maybe a year from now, but you're making a change immediately.
And of course, when you start balancing it out, that you're making more good choices than poor choices, right, that's going to have an impact on your long-term health. Mm-hmm. But every single choice you make, every second and minute of the day is switching on and switching off genes.
Very good. So we're all very accountable for the decisions we're making every day.
And only to yourself, of course, because it's you and your, it's between you and your genes. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a lot about diet considerations that can help us have a more positive genetic manifestation. Are there any other lifestyle choices that you recommend that you think are particularly powerful in influencing epigenetics?
Yeah, so they kind of all are. Again, I'll give you more detail, but I just want to say, every decision matters. So let's think about what that means. So that'll be the food we're eating.
Okay.
It'll be when we're eating it and how much we're eating. It'll be the quality of the food that we're eating is obviously like so important. So if we're eating processed foods, if we're eating lots of sugary foods, like lots of corn syrup and stuff, those are not the genes that you want to be switching on, right? So the amount of food, the quality of food, where you're sourcing your food, how you're cooking your food, everything's going to change gene expression. Then, of course, lifestyle. So what does that mean? Sleep is going to change gene expression, all right? Exercise goes without saying. When you exercise, you switch on genes. When you exercise in a really healthy, like moderate way, you actually really help your body with inflammation. You decrease inflammation. If you overtrain and you're going for one of those super big events like Ironman, you actually overwhelm your body with inflammation and oxidative stress. So it's all about like finding that perfect place. Okay, so exercise goes there. What about the weather? So here's what's interesting. Weather can change gene expression. So I'm based in Seattle. I can tell you for sure that weather changes my gene expression. So when we talk about seasonal affective disorder, why do some of us really battle living in Seattle with the gray and the dark and the rain? It's because that the weather conditions are actually changing the way our genes express, and that can change our mood. So that mood is coming from gene expression. What about laughing, connecting with friends, giving your friends a hug, changes gene expression, all right? Wow. So loneliness, the flip side of that is loneliness. Think of the COVID times when we were also disconnected and how everyone's health, mental and physical, was so badly. It's because something like loneliness has a significant impact on gene expression in the same way that having a hug from a friend or laughing or experiencing joy has the opposite effect. So I can tell you that there isn't a thing that you can think of that exists in your world that doesn't impact gene expression. Maybe it's medicine you're taking, maybe it's supplements you're taking, maybe it's radiation you've been exposed to, the weather, connection, community. And that's why when we think of like the blue zones, you think about like these people who live to these amazing health. Why? Because if you only look at their diet, yes, their diet is good, but it's not enough to account for it. And all of them, without exception, have community.
Right.
All of them.
Yes.
Without exception, have community, and they have joyfulness, and they dance and they sing. It's because all these things change gene expression.
Oh, it's fantastic. I would like to go to one of those blue zones.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
That'd be nice. Okay, I'm just double checking these questions here. We've covered a lot. I think we've covered almost everything. Okay, so I do know that epigenetics have received a lot of hype in some circles in recent years. To avoid being faddish, are there any limitations or myths that you want to dispel about epigenetics?
Okay, great question. So I love, as you can hear, I love genetics and I love epigenetics. And I love them together. I call them the yin and yang of genetics, right?
Mm-hmm.
You use sequence code to know who you are, and where you need to focus your attention, and you use epigenetics to go, I'm going to make great choices. But
Right.
here's the limitation, here's the caveat, that it is possible to do a genetic test, it's just a cheek swab, and understand who you are and what you need to focus on and how you experience things and how you respond. The problem with epigenetics is that currently there are some tests in the marketplace that are selling epigenetic testing. And what it actually is you do a test where they're able to look at gene expression, what we call methylation patterns.
Right.
The problem is epigenetic testing is kind of where genetic testing was 15 years ago. 15, 20 years ago, we were really good. We were starting to learn how to test for genetics. We didn't understand how to translate the data. And that's kind of where we are with epigenetic testing, that we can do the test that shows switching on and switching off genes, but the way the data comes out from testing, we're really not good at being able to say, and this is what you should eat for breakfast, and this is the supplement you take, and this is the kind of exercise you do. So I think the limitation of epigenetics is the concept is excellent, which is let's use epigenetics to make the best possible choices. The limitation of epigenetics is that the current testing environment for epigenetics isn't there yet. It will get there, but I reckon it needs at least another 5 years before we're able to really extract that value.
I see. All right, so it sounds like there's a fairly solid general basis that everyone can abide by to do their best to optimize their genetic expression. But when it comes to an individualized plan, we're not quite there yet. However, your
not for
business model,
epigenetics, but we are for genetics.
Right, yes for genetics, not quite for epigenetic expression.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. That does sound like you are helping to bridge that gap, however, when it comes to actually applying what we know about our own genome. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about it's 3x4 genetics? No, 3x4. 3x4 genetics.
Ex-boyfriend.
Thank
Remember,
you.
Yeah.
3x4.
Yeah. So what does 3x4 genetics do? So we have a genetic test. So I've been working in this area for 24 years now, and we've built a genetic test. And the reason we've done this is we look at your spelling changes, and we look at everything from detox and inflammation, glucose, insulin, hormones, histamine, memory, mood, cardiovascular stuff. We look at how do some of us experience our weight journey? Why do some of us gain weight so easily and find it so hard to lose weight? Why are some of us more hungry than others and battle to feel full? Why do some of us store energy more? So we look at that. We look at gene variants or spelling changes and how we respond to exercise and training. Why for some of us it's harder to get close to that front pack. That's me. Injury susceptibility in training. How do I recover from our training? And then lastly, we look at gene variants that impact nutrients, whether it's iron or gluten, vitamin A or caffeine, vitamin B12. So, and using all of this, we're now able to personalize for you what you need to do better to really optimize the genes that you have inherited from your parents. So it's called 3x4 Genetics. We work with an amazing community of clinicians all around the USA who have been trained and educated and mentored to be able to look at this genetic report and be able to really extract those clinical gems to really ultimately personalize whatever it is that you're looking for, whether it's weight management, whether it's sports nutrition, whether it's a chronic disease that you've been really battling with and doctors are just not finding the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, those that are looking for optimal health, we're all looking for our longevity hacks and optimal health. So we're able to address all of that because everything is in our one report. And then the way our practitioners are taught is they're taught how to read the genetics to see who you are and again where we need to work, but they also taught on how to plan a diet, lifestyle, supplement protocol for you to optimize that gene expression for the epigenetics to switch on and switch off genes. So it's been a very exciting journey, and we have some incredible case studies and testimonials of how it really, really is able to change people's lives. And I know it sounds cliched, but it really does.
Well, it does sound like it takes care of a lot of the guesswork, a lot of the question marks, a lot of the interpretation that might not be so accurate.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
I've actually given it a lot of thought since our last interview, and I'm very compelled by this idea. So we may be looking a little more into it. Yes.
Good. Yeah.
All right. Well, Yael, thank you so much for, I don't know, the third, fourth chance that we've needed for this interview. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close up?
Eat a lot of broccoli. You can't go wrong.
I have been eating way more broccoli since the last time we met.
Excellent. Well, there you go. If you're going to make one change, eat more broccoli.
It's the broccoli. Raw broccoli and chew it really well, right?
And chew it. There you go. Eat raw broccoli or cauliflower, but broccoli wins, and chew it really well. Don't cook it. Eat it raw.
Perfect.
Yeah. That's
all
it.
right. Well, thank you so much for your endless patience and your endless wisdom, and you'll be hearing from us again.
Wonderful. Thanks, PJ.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
So what are the takeaways when it comes to the genetics myth? First, your genetics determine a lot about you. 99.9% about you, actually. But that 0.1% wiggle can have a massive impact. An impact within your control. Making decisions like wholesome eating, social connection, and balanced exercise can make a massive difference in your quality of life. Even if you are predisposed to suffer from certain mental health diseases, you are making an impact on these epigenetics with every moment that passes. So DNA locking in your destiny? I think we can say, myth busted. We're nearing the end of today's episode. Now, before we get to our Silver Liners Challenge, I would like to point something out that some of our listeners may need to hear. We just discussed that much of what ails us can be mitigated by being kind to our epigenetic functions. However, not every genetic issue can be sidestepped by altering our environment or behavior. If there's a listener out there saying, "What the heck is wrong with me?" because they followed all the right steps and still struggle with some form of illness, please accept our compassion. Epigenetics shows us that we have more control over our DNA expression than we thought. A lot more control, but not total control. Keep up those healthy behaviors. If you still suffer, here's a hug from me to you. I hope you find peace. Now, without further ado, we invite you to join us for our Silver Liners Challenge, which is designed to be an easy, actionable step that you can take to help boost your week and help you survive hell. Here it is. This week's Silver Liners Challenge is to take advantage of epigenetics by making a healthy life choice this week that you wouldn't normally make. Remember, Dr. Joffe gives us an easy trick. Eat raw broccoli, don't cook it, and chew it well. But any positive lifestyle change will make you a winner in this challenge. We'll follow up with you in our next episode to see how you did. Thank you for joining us today. It means more than you probably think. We'd like to thank Dr. Yael Joffe for her contributions to today's episode. If Dr. Joffe's genetic testing and epigenetic coaching sounded valuable to you, then we agree. You can find more about her services by following the link in the description. We'd also want to credit a book that had substantial influence today, DNA is Not Destiny, by Stephen J. Hine, which can be found on Amazon or just a simple Google search. Thanks again for listening, everyone. We really hope to see you again for our next episode to unlock your survivor's toolbox. And just a quick reminder, if you got any value from this podcast, we would love it if you came to support us by leaving a review. If your podcast player doesn't have an option to leave a review, you can always hop over to our Facebook page and leave some stars there. And hey, might as well follow us while you're at it. Now, we're thrilled to give you one of our favorite parts of the podcast, the cheesy joke of the week. This features one of the world's most favorite myths, the unicorn. What do you call a baby unicorn? A unikernel. Okay, one more. What do unicorns call their dads? Popcorn. Yeah, that's it for now, guys. See you next time.